Alright, howdy there fellow Shadow Priest. I wanted to make a quick video to give a little update on the upcoming changes. We've got what some people consider a buff, some people consider a nerf. What do you think? Let's figure it out. So just looking at the changes right away, we'll go by them step by step. Increase the base mana cost of Power Word Shield to 5% was 4%. Basically, I think they think that shield is too strong and is doing too much healing. You know, I don't try to press shield too often, but I did notice it is significantly stronger this expansion compared to previous expansions, so I don't really mind the nerf there. I think that's okay. People were saying we're too tanky, and you know what, that's a very small nerf, so I think we're okay with that. Vampiric Touch damage increased by 10%. Okay, immediately we think, hey, Vampiric Touch is often our #1 source of damage. Take a look at my damage every game. It's always going to be Vampiric Touch, Vampiric Touch, Vampiric Touch. So our biggest, I wouldn't say biggest damage ability, but the ability that does the most damage is getting buffed by 10%. That's an overall net positive. Shadow Word Pain increased by 10% for Shadow only. Thank God they didn't just keep randomly buffing Holy Priest. You know, this is great. I'm liking that. You know, again, looking at our #2 damage, what is that? Shadow Word Pain. So our consistent damage is going to be pretty solid going forward. Shadowy Apparition damage increased by 10%. All right, I mean, come on. These are looking pretty good here, right? Like looking at everything here, man, it's just the apparitions don't do too much, although you could try to, you know, buff them out with some of these other talents. We're going to keep going with it. Devouring Plague, 10%. Void Bolt, 20%. Mind Blast, 20%. Mind Spike, 20%. Mind Flay, 20%. And then finally, the Idol of Yasharj increases damage done by 5% when Mindbender summoned on a fear target was 15. So, my overall takeaway from this is that they are trying to get away from us doing a ton of like gimmicky burst damage and getting away from those gimmicky one-shots, but then instead overall buffing our consistent damage, and especially like our filler spells, the Mind Blast, the Devouring Plagues, like that's all getting buffed. That's going to be crazy. The Mind Blast buff is actually really important. So we get the 10% on the dots, but 20% Void Bolt, 20% Mind Blast, 20% Mind Spike, that stuff is all really good. And then going down to PvP as well, you'll see that we actually got our Void Volley nerfed here, so this is really actually okay with me. I really don't like the Void Volley playstyle. I feel like Void Volley has kind of been memey and gimmicky, and I even kind of didn't like to play it last expansion, so getting away from that is fine with me. The second big nerf we're going to see here is the Shadow Word Death damage reduced by 20% for Shadow only. I mean, I've been hitting 100k Shadow Word Deaths. I don't know, this one doesn't look too big, but overall, it did seem kind of crazy, and with all the right buffs up and all the right amps, I think it was getting out of control. So we do have still a lot of damage from the Shadow Word Death, but instead of 100k, you know, we're going to hit an 80k with our cooldowns up, and I think that's okay with me. So I'll take a little less burst damage for a little bit more sustained damage. And we're also going to talk about really quickly the shield nerf again. So 20%, not only did they nerf the mana cost, but they nerfed the amount that it absorbs. So I think that's okay. Vampiric Embrace was nerfed basically because everyone's allowed to play this talent here. And I think these are pretty minimal nerfs. I feel like we got away pretty good. I mean, they didn't really nerf a lot of these talents. They just nerfed Idol of Yasharj, which again, I think we can get away without playing. So let's take a look at my current build and we'll see how that interacts with the new talents. Also, it is nuking snow right now, and I just wanted to give you guys a taste of what that looks like in case you don't live in a wintry state. So I'll be ready to get outside and go play in the snow really shortly here, but first things first, we gotta figure out these new builds for the upcoming changes. So let's check this out here. So this is my current build that I'm always playing, right? This is what you watch me stream, you watch me do solo shuffles, you watch me do arena. I am playing this build all the time. With this Idol of Yasharj nerf, you know, we're really gonna get that 5% damage buff, so I'm not quite sure if we're gonna be taking this. I mean, I'm gonna experiment with this for sure, but I think this is what I'm gonna end up doing. I might end up saying, you know what, I don't really think that's worth it. If we want to play this build, we can actually throw that talent somewhere else. We can take an extra point in Damnation if we'd like. We can also kind of say, you know what, maybe we don't really need the Damnation thing, and with that 20% buff on Mind Blast, we can actually go ahead and buff that by another 20% and start doing some nuclear hits. So if you feel like you can cast a lot, that'll be sick, and then combining those big Mind Blasts with that might actually end up being more DPS overall if you're, you know, getting lucky with your crits and such. So that is definitely one way to do it if you want to stick with that Mindbender route. But because all of our dots are getting buffed, I'm actually going to switch over to my Void Form build, and this is the second build that we covered in my talents video, the first one of the expansion. This is kind of what I've been liking to play for Void Form. Very high emphasis on taking 2 points in Dark Evangelism, because now you're going to also increase the rest of your, you're going to increase all of your dots again by 10% when it's stacked fully. So really, really huge, crucial dot buffs right there. We're also going to take, we're focusing on all of dot uptime, right? So we're taking Damnation, reduced Damnation cooldown, and then Idol of N'Zoth is some pretty good consistent damage. But again, if you find yourself in a situation where, hey, maybe you're playing Shadow Play, maybe you're not going to get trained, maybe you know they're going to go on the Warlock, you can go again into the 2 points of Talbotars and the Idol of N'Zoth, and that'll be really fun as well. So you can lock these in and feel pretty comfortable about them, and then just switching these two, I think, is the smartest thing to do. You absolutely want to take Encroaching Shadows. That's just so much damage, and then they're also buffing that Devouring Plague. So we've got Void Form, we've got Ancient Madness. We could actually even get away without playing Ancient Madness if we wanted to, and try to get a little bit more cheeky with our build. It might just be a little bit complicated. You're going to force yourself into one of these two talents here, which I'm not particularly fond of either of them, but we can take that. Nah, I don't know. These talents are kind of bad. I think you could figure out a way to do it though. You could go, let's say we can take one of those, we can take one of those, and because the crits are less important in Void Form as opposed to Dark Ascension, we can kind of play around with this here. We can still get a Mindbender. We're gonna have to get down here, unfortunately, somehow. So I'll take that. Boom, boom. Idol N'Zoth looks pretty good to me. And again, you can switch these out to whatever your preference is. But overall, as long as you're taking Dark Evangelism and you're taking Malediction, Idol N'Zoth, or one of those two, I feel like taking Dark Evangelism and N'Zoth somehow in this Void Form build is going to be really solid for you as a Shadow Priest. And it's going to be a lot of damage. I'm really excited. I've already had some games where we were playing earlier, and I was playing Void Form and doing decent damage, doing top damage. Here's a game where I'm playing. Oh yeah, we didn't even talk about the PvP down, so let's do that real quick before we sign off. But basically, Void Bolt already hitting for 55k crits. You're going to be looking at a pretty significant increase with that 20% buff. You're also going to be doing more damage with Mind Blast, and yeah, also taking Echoing Void. This is the Idol of N'Zoth talent that I'm talking about here. So this damage actually is probably more meaningful over time with just raw, consistent pad damage. And since we are moving towards a more like rot-oriented build, I think N'Zoth is going to be pretty hard to lock in for us. And then talking about the PvP talents, I already kind of experimented with it yesterday, but Catharsis is very strong. So with the Void Volley nerfs, I think we'll be looking to drop Volley and play Catharsis. And also when you play Void Form, you're going to want to incorporate Driven to Madness somehow. So if you're not taking Catharsis, you can swap that out and keep Void Origins. So we can do something like this and basically not have that not have Catharsis or not have Void Origins. Personally, I think I'm going to drop Void Origins and go with Catharsis because it does hit really hard. I mean, it hit a 65k here, and you can also do some cheeky things with like a Battle Master and a Desperate Prayer, and then boom, all of a sudden you're hitting 100ks. But overall, I think this build is going to be very solid, and I'm definitely going to put this link to my this video in the description of my channel or in a little command so that every time someone asks me, hey man, what do you think about the talents? Boom, you can watch this video and appreciate it. But yeah, stay tuned for the stream tonight. Twitch TV, Stop SB. Join the Discord. We have so many friendly people over here that would love to chat you up and talk about all these things. I'm constantly trying to answer the questions. I'm trying to interact with everyone, but we also have people that can answer the questions for you if I'm not around. So I do my best, but if I'm not there, someone else will help you out. Yeah, man, that's pretty much it. Hope I covered everything there. There might be one or two other builds that we can experiment with, but for now, I think I'm going to lock this one in pretty hard, and as well as try the Mindbender build out, but we might be forced to play this build a bit more if the damage is as good as I think it's going to be. So thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you next time.